And so China is obvious. Everyone's in China now. So where does the partnership opportunity come from? I think that it gets back to what Glenn talks about, is the fact that there's got to be a reason to partner, right? Because if you look at this objectively, first question you ask is, what do you bring to the table? And China is just too easy because they're the second largest market and they'll soon be the largest market in the world, just like the reason why in the US right now, majority of the market in the US, so these are obvious. But without having the market, being a small nation, then you have to bring something to the table that's either a niche. So my parents always told me as we're going to be, you got to be good at something, right? So the question now is you got to decide what you're going to be good at. But like what I said earlier, but you can't try to be like Michael Jordan because you're never going to be like Michael Jordan. So you need to think, not only think very hard, is there a niche? Is there a niche we can be very, very good at? And it's not a common niche everyone's playing in. And when you do that and you bring that to the table, then there's reason to partner. So I'm not saying that there's zero partnership. Certainly, as a technology transfer, we're very active in working with different universities. And there are certainly also clinical trials being conducted in Taiwan, and we see these reports. But that, I don't consider partnership in a discussion. When we talk of partnership, it's really long-term collaborations, a level up which will provide mutual benefit in the long run, right? Because clinical trial, I actually consider that very one-way benefit that we are going into each. So when we conducted hepatitis B trial, when I was working for Novartis, we went to Taiwan because Taiwan has a lot of hepatitis C patients, but that's not really partnership, right? So I think we really need to look very hard in terms of where are the opportunities and bring that to the table in terms of not only multinationals, but looking at other academic institutions in the US and really define a path for yourself.
Well, anyway, I think that's correct. Partnership really is to bring the weakness and strengths together, strengths and strengths together, so make it even stronger. If you have a culture shock, right, the cultural difference, that's where you need to partner. If you go into the country by yourself, you may run into even more problems. So, let alone Dr. Low, he knows Taiwan actually quite well. But maybe through partnering, you can reduce a lot of difficulties. We want to leave a little bit of time to audience to raise questions. So maybe I'll ask Glenn to make a final comments.
Sure. Thank you. Well, so just listening to everyone, I mean, I think a lot of what you heard, well, maybe there was contrary points of view that they're actually, in some ways, both right. It depends on the partner, and it depends on or the needs of the partners or potential partners. So I think, to Chris's point, it's unlikely that a large multinational, certainly the scope and scale of Johnson & Johnson, but even a tier down from that, that's operating on a multinational scale, is necessarily going to need the assistance that Taiwan can provide as a gateway into China, because they're going to have the critical mass and expertise in order to be able to, maybe with some bumps in the road, but be able to figure out the culture shock and the regulatory requirement and the market opportunity, or they'll be able to acquire it. If you come down to a tier below that, and you think of the entrepreneur-led, innovative companies, I think there probably is a group of companies that really could look at what is their ultimate market that they're going to address themselves, and what are they going to need to do, not just in Asia, but around the world through partners. If you talk about the biotech, biopharma industry, as we heard, it's certainly true. 10 years is an optimistic time frame to first drug approval. Most of the companies that are bringing the first product on the market have been at it 15, 18 years. So it's probably a little early for a commercial-based partnership. There might be clinical trial opportunities. There might be some research-based collaborations. But a true market collaboration and accessing markets, I think you're really looking at a segment of companies that are near term to being prepared to launch the first product. And I think that lends itself much more to medical device, biomedical companies that have, as we heard, a much shorter path to market. much more of a bedside dementia approach where it's an engineering challenge versus trying to understand some fundamental truth about biology and take a product all the way to market. So again, I think just to summarize, and we'll open up for the questions, as we're thinking about broadly about this concept of partnership, it may be useful to say, gee, who would I target? Who in the environment around the globe are the types of enterprises that would most need what I have to offer, both in terms of their stage of development, their size, their financial needs. I mean, the reality is the smaller companies around the world that are trying to develop products are very constrained access to capital these days. So it's not just expertise, but it's cash, something that could be brought into the equation. You know, what's the technological focus? How does it fit? I think there's a series of attributes to be looked at. And then I'll just come back around to where I started. You know, healthcare is really fundamentally changing. And so there are opportunities for white space niches that haven't been fully pursued by anybody, including the developed world. You know, companies that have been fundamentally or primarily selling products in the US and Europe, they're trying to figure this out. So there's real opportunities. The way I like to think about it, you know, and I talk a lot to our pharmaceutical companies about the concept of how healthcare is changing, is they're constantly thinking about how to defend last year's prices in an industry that in the US is about $250 billion. That's about 10–12% of a $2 trillion business. And somebody else is going to figure out how to add value in that $2 trillion opportunity. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an existing player. And you'd really be amazed about the number of companies that are now see healthcare as a new opportunity. And so I think where that enterprise comes from, sector, could be a sector completely outside of traditional healthcare, or geography is yet to be determined. So there's great opportunity to think much more broadly about what the problems need to be solved.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Tony Hong from New Bio Incorporated, and my question is sort of expanding on the points that Glenn and Christopher talked about, which is brainstorming these white spaces or niches where maybe Taiwan can play. I was wondering if you could speak to maybe some other things out there, for example, Chinese medicine, or maybe there are medical devices we can develop utilizing Chico principles. And thinking, you know, a little bit more even outside of the box. Everyone here, I think, knows about Red Bull, right, which is an energy drink. You know, Australian company developed it, coming from a drink that he found in Southeast Asia. You know, what if any of, you know, this can we sort of learn from? Because, you know, Taiwan has a great tradition of a lot of food and agricultural products as well. Thank you.
So I think that is a great question, and it's irony that we were just talking about Chinese medicine during lunch today about how it's being a challenge to bring Chinese medicine into the Western culture, whereas the Western medicine has been very successful in infiltrating the Chinese culture. That being said, I think that white space discussion it's one that, you know, I can't give you a specific answer of what it could be, but it is something that I think it's now you need to think about it. You need to think about this continuously because it's always changing. I'm glad Jonesy brought up about Yang Chen and Jeremy Lin. Because I believe Jeremy Lin was successful predominantly because of the fact that he didn't take the predominant role, right? I mean, he was atypical. He was nothing typical, you know, and because he never gave up, and he really took an atypical path. And so I think, you know, for Taiwan to be successful, it's not an obvious choice of partner. I think I want to say that. But then, in order for it to become a partner, then you need to be, you know, make yourself attractive in some way, in some type of niche. Like you said, Red Bull is a good example, and although it's not really biotech or medtech, it's something similar to that. Think outside the box, which tend to be challenging for most Asian culture.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with what Christopher just mentioned, that we have to think outside the box. One way to build, great fortune in China, I think one of the reasons was that they're not playing in the box. You know, if you see some of the I mean, the richest man in China, the business model actually is so novel that makes them, you know, the number one or number two richest man in that country. So, working on the biotech, this is something we can address in the future. And the best way, probably, for China is to bring together the Western medicine together with the Chinese herbal medicine to make it very unique in that market. And this can be something at the end totally acceptable to the Chinese, and then to build the biggest market in the world. So this is my comment. Thank you.
Just to follow on that, one reality about the future of healthcare, I think, is we'll see it be much more centered around the patient rather than the doctor relationship. Doctor relationship will still be significant, but the patient will need to take more responsibility in their care and will want to have more responsibility, will want to have more information. And when you start to think about patient in a way as consumer, not to go all the way to the Red Bull example, but consumer preferences will start to come into this. And so what an entrepreneur does is fill a niche. Right? We're in a highly regulated industry, but in an unregulated industry, an entrepreneur is finding a consumer niche that can be exploited. You start to think about healthcare, there are people who have all, each of us actually has different views about how we want our care to take place. Some of us want the latest technology, some of us would want traditional homeopathic technology, some would want a lot of intervention, some would want a little bit of intervention. So you can start to think about business opportunities around helping patients that might present different solutions either for data or for new kinds of problems.
Okay, I think there's another question over there.
My name is Jason Lee. I'm the CSO of a local biotech company here in Austin. I have a real case that we're considering partnerships with Taiwan, a collaboration from Taiwan as well. We have antibody drug candidates that we're considering moving towards phase 1 IND and phase 1 trial. And I'm considering Taiwan because of two reasons. I graduated from medical school like Dr. Chen from National Taiwan University. And then got my basic science degree in the U.S. So I still have better connections with medical communities in Taiwan than I have in the U.S. So that's one reason. Another reason is one of the indications that we're considering for this antibody drug has regional importance in Taiwan. So with that, my question is directed for Dr. Chen and perhaps a little bit for Dr. Low as well, if you care to comment. For a small company trying to move to IND and phase 1 trials, I know Dr. Chen has personally done a few cases already. What advice would you have for us to navigate through the Taiwan's regulatory agencies, manufacturing capacity, capital markets, etc.? Thank you.